Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Mitch Light, the sideline reporter for Vanderbilt football. This show is sponsored by the Well Coffee House, a Nashville area coffee house that provides fresh roasted coffee along with its house-made pastries, breakfast, and lunch offerings. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area. You can find those Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. More information can be found at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Our news presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in any type of accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Well, it was an ugly final from Oxford. Ole Miss beats Vanderbilt 31-6. Ole Miss rushes for 413 yards. Commodores really just not a good first half and a really, really poor second half. And now 1-4 on the year, heading to the game next week with UNLV. Our guest line, presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I was away this weekend. I did not sleep on Boll & Branch sheets for the first time in a while. Let me tell you, I can tell the difference, and not in a good way. Boll & Branch sheets are fair trade certified. That means they're made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. You could try Boll & Branch sheets for a month and then return them if you don't like them, but you're going to like them. Just trust me on this one. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Mitch Light joins us. He is the sideline announcer for Vanderbilt football. Mitch is back from Oxford. I'm back from Gatlinburg, where I think I probably had a better time than Mitch did, and maybe more importantly, got 90-something% of my voice back. But anyway, Mitch, thank you for joining us today. Hope you're doing well.
I am doing well, and I had a good time. Despite the Commodores' performance, I did not travel with the team this weekend. I drove down Saturday morning with my wife and son, and we spent the day in Oxford, and then hotel Saturday night in Batesville, Mississippi, hometown of Chris Young, and then had breakfast in Memphis and came home. So it was a good little short trip.
Your family does not normally go with you on road games, does it?
No, I mean, very rarely. My son and wife have gone on the last couple of UT games maybe. But no, I travel with the team. It's leave on Fridays. Usually son has school and wife teaches and stuff like that. Yeah. So like if it was up to my son, he would go with me to every game, but no, it's rare.
Well, let's get to the game. I don't know any other way to say it. That just was one of the most all-around lousy performances they've had in a while, given who they played. And not that Ole Miss is a terrible team by any stretch, but that's one of those games that at the beginning of the year we circled as eminently winnable. I don't think that anything had changed that during the course of the season, and I just thought under the circumstances, I don't think that was what we expected.
Right. I mean, you can call a game winnable, and if you lose 31-24, it's disappointing, but you played well. You know, you put up a good fight there, but losing 31-6, obviously is a completely different story. And, really, it's difficult looking for positives out of that game. Obviously a lot of negatives. One thing I'll say, and I don't want this to be like a positive spin at all, but usually when you give up 435 yards rushing, it's more like, 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, like you're getting gashed like Georgia does to teams, just ripping off big run, like moderate runs. I thought Vanderbilt's defense actually won a lot of rushing downs, but then they would just give up the huge play. If that makes sense, I'd like to see, I could have charted it if I had some more time, but they held Ole Miss to, I would say like 2 or 3 yards or less more times than you would think, giving up 435 yards. But there were obviously too many big plays, just back-breaking plays where it looked like defenders were in position. And just it continues to be a problem all season long is safeties, guys in the secondary, taking bad angles. And it's one thing doing it, against an LSU wide receiver in the open field. And it's another doing it more, closer to the line of scrimmage against Ole Miss running backs. Not that they're not athletic and stuff. So that was disappointing. And, Vanderbilt was without three contributors in the secondary, Frank Coppett, D.C. Williams, and who's the third guy? And Tay Daly. But really, no one in the secondary has really distinguished himself this year. Like, they play about, seemingly 8 or 9 guys. So I don't think that's a valid, reason. So I would say I was almost more disappointed in the offense than the defense. And that's, weird thing to say when you give up 435 rushing yards. Just continue nothing downfield. Just really everything was tough. It seemed like every yard was tough. The play that Kalijah Litzman on the right sideline was a short pass where he made a guy miss. I can't think of many plays beyond that went for, more than 15 yards. I'm looking. Chris Pierce got a ball for 17. That Ben Bresnahan play for 19 yards, and then Keyshawn Vaughn had a 17-yard run and Riley Neal 16. But it's just no big plays and nothing downfield.
Yeah, they had one play of 20-plus yards. That was the aforementioned Lipscomb reception. Ole Miss, by my quick math, had 215 yards on 3 runs alone. Then if you add in the Plumlee 33-yard touchdown and the Phillips 24-yard touchdown, that's another 57 to that. So that's, 272 in 5 runs? I mean, I guess to your point, you can – like take the 84-yard touchdown run. You can get 9 stops for no gain after that, and you're still giving up 8.4 per rush. So it really was.
I'm not trying to put a spin, but there's different ways to look at it. Like Florida versus Auburn, Florida's running game actually looked like they had a pretty productive game. Well, LaMichael Pirine had like an 85-yard run after he was bottled up, and so you take that out. And it's really more representative of what Auburn did to Florida's run game. But all yards count, obviously. But it's just, to me, just watching the game, it just struck me where there were a lot of plays where Vanderbilt did a really good job defensively. And then the next play, obviously, 80-yard run, 74-yard, whatever they were.
Yeah, we're making the same point. And the one thing that you almost forget, and again, I'm not trying to put a positive spin on it, but I did think their pass defense played pretty well early. But it's just the same issue they've had all year. They can make a team one-dimensional. It doesn't matter because that team can do whatever that thing that it wants to do against them ad nauseum, and here they are with the 25-point loss.
Yeah, and I will say, John Rice Plumlee is an exciting young player, but he doesn't really scare you throwing the ball. So, I don't think Vanderbilt had to be that worried about the pass defense. He's 10 of 18 for 99 yards, and he's a fun player. But they're not going to beat good teams until they can start throwing the ball better down the field.
Offense, I don't even know where to start. It's just the same thing we have seen, except it's only getting worse. They don't throw the ball downfield, or they can't, or whatever the reason is. Keyshawn Vaughn has nowhere to go. We thought 2 weeks ago the line, you sit there, you think, okay, logically there's reasons to think it will get better because it wasn't great by any stretch, but under these circumstances, getting some young guys out there against Georgia and LSU and them not being total disasters, you're thinking, okay, what gets linemen better quicker than anything? It's snaps and experience and being in situations. But boy, that they've gotten Devin Cochran back, and I think they've been worse on the offensive line. Not because of Devin, of course, but that's the one thing that from week to week they just can't seem to fix.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And I don't know if the broadcast made point of this, the TV broadcast, especially since Cole Kubelik talks a lot about offensive linemen. But Vanderbilt, Grant Miller maybe played the first quarter. I'm not sure when they made the switch, but Sean McMahon played the majority of the game at center. And Mason, I didn't hear the question. I'm in the locker room listening to Derek Mason talk to Joe Fisher, and he made reference that we were having problems at center, then brought Sean McMahon. So they weren't snapped. So I don't know what the problems were at center. I know Ole Miss early in the game blew up the line a couple times. If there was just a blocking issue with Grant Miller, but that was interesting to see Sean McMahon get so many reps.
Yeah, well, here are the grades according to Pro Football Focus, and again, they do these without regard or without knowledge of specific assignments. Miller played 16 snaps, started, got a 47.5 overall grade, a 32.6 in pass blocking, and a 50.6 in run blocking. And McMorr came in really he graded exactly the same, literally to the decimal point, 47.5, a 26.1 in pass blocking, and a 56 in run blocking. So one a little better in run, one a little better in pass protection, relative being, or better being a relative term, but neither were very good.
Right. And, it's easy for us to sit here and say, you're not throwing the ball downfield, but clearly they're not getting the offensive line play that they think they need to throw the ball downfield. I mean, I'm sure they know the issues, the coaching staff. Riley's not seeing the field great. Derek Mason made reference to this too when Joe asked him about the change. Wanted to get Deuce in there. Just looked like they weren't thrilled with some of the stuff Riley was doing. I don't know if it was not recognizing protections or not recognizing, where blitzes were coming from or whatever. But I don't know if it's Riley's just not comfortable back there because he's under pressure so much, but he's missing guys that are open downfield at times too.
Did quarterback switch come up at all in the post-game conversation?
Well, yeah, I mean, Joe specifically asked Derek about that. And like I just said, Derek mentioned that there's just some things that Riley wasn't doing that they needed him to do. So that's why they made the change.
Well, let me rephrase that. I did hear you say that. What I meant was the possibility of that carrying forward. I guess that'll be something we'll ask him about Tuesday, but I didn't know if it happened to come up.
I'm only privy to half the conversation, so Derek might have said, I followed up. He did say at one point, we will look at that later, so it could have been a follow-up to that. So, and I'm sure I can't think of a coach in the country that 10, 15 minutes after a game like that would announce a new starter, unless someone was hurt. They're obviously not going to do that until they look at film and stuff like that. And I doubt that even if they are making a switch, I doubt they'll announce anything. So one thing I do want to, before I forget, if people want to know why Derek Mason was so mad at the half at the refs, the TV broadcast did not pick up on it?
No, I didn't either. I could not figure it out. So
go back and after Bresnan catches that diving catch, the clock stopped for about 2 seconds. The ref and they're supposed to, even in times of duress or when teams are really scrambling late in the game, the refs are really not supposed to do things quicker than they normally do. The ref spots the ball and starts the clock. The chains aren't even close to being set. And so Vanderbilt has to run up. So Derek was really fuming that, because obviously in college football, the clock stops on a first down. And I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Usually you get about 5 full seconds, especially on a long pass, 25-yard pass like that. Well, the clock started immediately, and it basically cost Vanderbilt a full play. So he was irate about that.
Well, common sense would dictate you'd at least let the chains get in place, right? Would it not? I mean, that's crazy. In addition to them not getting that, we, for whatever reason, the cable company and Gatlinburg had that on standard def. So another, I guess you could say I didn't see the game exactly as bad as it was in all its glory. But anyway,
so I mean,
it is what it is.
That didn't impact the game. But that was, I think he was frustrated. But hey, let's if we want to look for one positive, we can say that the field goal kicking. Riley Gay made 2 for 2 and has not missed a kick this year, and he was the player of the game. I think I interviewed Kerry Spear once after a Wake Forest game that Vanderbilt won, and Kerry made the kick. But in 7 years of doing it, or whatever years, it's very few times where we interview the kicker.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to next. I mean, like if you're looking for positive things on the season, I think you'd say that the kicking would be one of them. I just didn't think a lot of guys played well. I thought Andre Mintz played well. He was my pick for defensive player of the game. I'm looking at the Pro Football Focus grades, which I did not have access to at the time. They agree. I think they had him as the highest graded defender. No, Jalen Mahoney. Excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong thing. But anyway, I do remember from memory he played decently well. And I think I had Kalijah Lipscomb on offense. In fact, I know I did. He graded okay. Other than that, there just wasn't a whole lot. Pro Football Focus had Drew Birchmeyer playing pretty well, so there was that. But really, nobody graded well. I don't think Keyshawn Vaughn just had much of a chance. Period.
Right.
There just wasn't a lot to pull out from this game to take forward and say, well, it didn't go their way, but at least you have this to feel better about going forward. This is one of those games that I just can't remember too many with this few of positives that I came away with.
Right, like the Purdue game was disheartening, and the defense, there was a lot of negatives, but at least the offense got going. You threw for had over, I think, 400 yards of offense. There was at least some things you came away feeling good about that game. Really, not a lot in this game. It's just some frustrating things where, like, individually, no big deal, but piled up, things that can't happen. Like Justice Shelton Mosley's been fine, but was it the opening kickoff or early in the game? He dropped the kickoff after calling a fair catch. So instead of getting the ball at the 25, you get the ball at the 8, and then there's a delay of game. They couldn't get the play in or something like that. And another time where they had too many men on the field for the field goal that Ole Miss missed. Just little things like that. Now, there weren't a lot of penalties in the game. I know that was a problem earlier in the year. There's only 3. But little things when you're on the road, your margin for error system, those things can't happen.
Yeah, that was almost like an omen for the night. I didn't even see that he signaled for a fair catch, but the bottom line is he fumbles the ball, and then Ole Miss is down there in no time, and they're starting your first possession from the 7, which I guess field position would be another thing on the long list of things that might come their way this year.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've seen more teams take advantage of that rule in the last few weeks than earlier in the year and last year. But obviously, the rule, if you call a fair catch and a kickoff, you can get inside the 25. So that's what Justice Shelton Mosley did in that play. And like I say, he just dropped it. He's been sound there, but but you lose 18 yards or whatever it is there, and you lose some momentum.
Injuries. I'm trying to remember. I don't really remember anybody who's key going down during the game. How do they end up in the health department after it was over?
Did not seem, I commented to Joe at one point that in the game that, it's for all the stuff going wrong, they remain pretty healthy. In fact, I think the injury tent went up only one time, maybe. Chris Owusu, it's Michael Owusu. Got banged up a little bit, but I think he looked fine. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're looking for a positive, they came out of the game pretty healthy. Although going in, they were missing 3 contributors in the secondary.
How hot was it down there?
Not very hot. It was hot during the day, but after the last 2 day games at Vanderbilt, it was very comfortable. Like, it was not. Again, I'm not playing, so I can't sit there and say it was no big deal. It was a little humid. It was hot during the day, but by the time the game started, I would say weather was not a factor at all.
Yeah, for those in our listening audience who are not in the area, when I left Nashville on Friday, it was, I think, 96, 97-ish, or it ended up at least that. And when I got back this afternoon, it was 58. So plus we got some rain, thank God. So,
yes, yeah. So
that's changing. I guess I haven't checked the forecast for this weekend, but presumably it'll be a lot warmer. Let's go into just college football and SEC or future opponents, anything like that in general before we go to the mailbag. I just want to get your thoughts quickly on the weekend and anything that might be relevant to a future opponent on the Vandy schedule too.
Well, Kentucky and South Carolina were off. Missouri beat Troy handily, 42-10, I believe. That's impressive. I mean, Troy's a good team, so anytime you do that, that's impressive. Northern Illinois lost at home to Ball State. I saw that score right before Vanderbilt's kickoff, and I just, not that the transitive law in college football is dangerous, but I would have felt better if Northern Illinois would have won the game handily, but losing at home to Ball State didn't make me feel great. Obviously, Florida looks very good. They still have major offensive line issues, but they managed to do just enough. I think both teams had 4 turnovers in the game, and there were big plays where Auburn had guys just kind of fall down. Or, Derek Brown almost had a return fumble for a touchdown for Auburn, just kind of fell down. Auburn could have won that game, but, credit Florida. I don't think they're that serious of a challenger to Georgia. We'll find out, but, they look obviously pretty good. Tennessee, hard to, the freshman quarterback, Maurer, looked good for a half from what I'm told. I did not see the game, but then Georgia kind of overwhelmed them in the second half. So, I think Texas A&M was off. Decent amount of teams were off. So, obviously this week, Florida LSU is the big one.
Yeah, I'm in a couple of Vandy Sports fantasy football leagues that I set up, and I was checking my roster Saturday morning. I think I had, oh my goodness, I don't even know. I think I got like a 13 or 14 man roster, and I think I had like all but 4 of my 5 guys on bye. So I had to do some furious roster maneuvering just to have an eligible active lineup for
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah. I mean, the only negative of that this year, where there's 2 buys. If you play fantasy sports, it's more difficult to maybe get a lineup every week. But I have noticed that again, for those that don't know, usually college football teams have 1 bye a year, but it's like every 3 or 4 or 5 years when there's an extra Saturday in between Labor Day and Thanksgiving. I think it is teams get 2 buys.
Forecast for Saturday, according to the weather app on my phone, it will be 62 for a high, 40 for a low, and looks like it's supposed to rain. So,
well, I like the 62 part. I'm ready for a little fall football weather. So don't like the rain part, but we'll see. So and Vanderbilt opened up as a 17-point favorite against UNLV. I think it was down to 15.5 last I saw.
by the way, if you were hearing an excited 5-year-old in the background, my son is very happy that the Braves have just homered to go ahead of the Cardinals. So I've taught him well.
Oh, good. Yeah, I saw that. I've got my several browsers up, and I saw that they just took the lead in the Dansby Swanson 2 for 2, batting .538 in the postseason.
Yeah, doubled off the bag to start the rally that inning. The Braves were down 3-1 coming in, and now up 4-3. So, and by the way, Swanson started the rally Sunday night. If you didn't see that, which I'm sure you probably did, but
I did. I was watching, but getting ready for the real baseball tonight when the Yankees play the Twins. So this
okay. You mean the slow pitch softball side of things?
Ooh, clever.
That's because that's what it is. I mean, isn't it like the 2 top home run hitting teams in the history of baseball?
It is. It is.
Well, you're all just playing second fiddle to the Astros on that side, I believe.
Unfortunately, you might be right.
I think everybody is too.
Yeah.
So let's go to the mailbag. That is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. If you're looking for a one-stop shop to take care of your insurance needs, Josh has you covered. Call him today, 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at Joshua Minton HQ or at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He's my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about it on this podcast. And you've got nothing to lose. Call Josh, see if he can help you with insurance. Tell him you heard about it here. And again, I think, Josh, there's a good chance that he can find you a better plan than the one you're on. Theodore 8 says, based on what we have seen so far, how does Mitch project the rest of the season? What games would Mitch consider Vanderbilt favored, and for which would Vanderbilt be the underdog?
Hold on a second. I'm calling up the schedule.
Well, I think I can make this easy. They're favored against UNLV.
Well, yeah.
And they'll be favored against ETSU. The Tennessee game right now, probably a toss-up. Probably Tennessee would get the nod for being the home team. I don't know that anything else will be really up for debate, will it?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. UNLV and ETSU, obviously. I think Braden Gall and I were doing our podcast this morning, and he saw somewhere that Tennessee would be like a 6 or 7 point favorite right now. Obviously that can change based on the way the teams are playing. So, it's hard to sit here and project any SEC wins at this point. Just being honest, I mean, can they beat Kentucky? Sure. Kentucky's got some offensive issues. I don't think South Carolina's a great team, but Missouri's playing very, very well right now. So yeah, I'm not going to, sit here and tell you I expect right now for this team to win any SEC games. That can change. Obviously, teams get better. Derek Mason's teams have played better late in the year. Last 2 times we went to a bowl game, but coming off the performance Saturday, it's hard to find a ton of reasons for optimism.
Yeah, Jeff Sagarin last week, I was looking that up and making a prediction based on his ratings, and he had Tennessee by 4 just by comparing the rankings on the predictor model and then adjusting for home field. And I saw that the gap between the teams actually separated a little bit more this weekend, so that may be where he's getting his line for Tennessee and Vandy. 96 Doors says, it seems like opposing ball carriers always seem to fall forward 3 or 4 extra yards after first contact is made. We seem to rarely be able to stop ball carriers at the point of first contact. Is this more of a size and strength issue or result of poor tackling techniques and angles?
I don't know. I'm not saying he's wrong. I haven't observed that. I think, I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn moves the pile a lot. He falls forward a lot, too. I thought Vanderbilt did a good job, like I said, on a lot of run plays at the point of contact last week. I do think in general, though, it's a size thing. You know, Vanderbilt just is not a very big team up front. They've got more 300-pounders probably than they've had in recent years, but they don't have the big run stuffers. I don't really know how big Derek Mason wants his guys. Teams are kind of getting away from the 340-pound, nose tackles and then plug in the middle. But, I would say if that is in fact true, it's, usually it's a combination of everything. But I think, Vanderbilt's just lack of size has been an issue in recent years in the run game.
Are they still waiting for an answer on Malik Langham, or did they get it and just haven't disclosed it since, I guess,
As
he was
a couple weeks ago, they were still waiting, but I have not followed up on that.
That's almost comical.
Yeah, he was not there. I did not notice him. You can only travel a certain amount for SEC games and, in uniform. So obviously if he's not going to play, he was not. You wouldn't expect him to be there, but he was not there.
Here are the defensive line snap counts. This is another thing that's kind of been a theme is they're not playing as many guys. Now they've had, of course, Langham hasn't gotten eligible yet, and then Zen Turner's done for the year. But snap counts on the defensive line, Birchmeier played 50. Let's see. Next was Tidd at 27. Then Reitmeyer at 7. There's got to be more than this. I'm not seeing something here.
Ole Miss had 62 plays.
Oh, Odingbo had 44. So it's Birchmeier, Odingbo, Tidd, Davion Davis had 21. I may not have said that. And then Wright, boy, their defensive line rotation is not deep.
Yeah. And I think, Langham would obviously be in that rotation. I don't know about Zen Turner. If he was healthy, I guess he would be. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else, from the beginning of the season that we expected to be in there. I can't really think off the top of my head that's not. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, Odingbo's a guy that's, he's done some good things this year and hasn't made a lot of splashy plays. But they're just looks like, they're kind of lacking that standout player there. They got a lot of, guys, a lot of solid or decent players, but they don't have that standout at that position.
Well, Zen Turner, I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast. I have on the site. He announced earlier in the week, I think, in fact, he took a picture from a hospital. He's having, I guess, some sort of knee surgery.
Right.
And I don't know really, because we didn't see a lot, but it sounded like that knee was hurt maybe so early coming into camp or maybe even before camp. I'm spitballing on this a little bit, but it kind of almost sounded like, I don't know if they knew how much he could have helped him, because I think he just had an ailment with that knee from very early on in camp, it sounded.
Yeah. And, I can't speak. That's my only understanding. So, and who knows how much he would have helped even if he was healthy.
Jorking says, can you give an update on Alan Walters? Did he travel with the team?
Didn't notice him, which I noticed Mo Hassan calling in plays. I thought about it after the fact, because if I thought about it during the game, I would have looked for him. So I did not notice him. He's 4th on the depth chart. Mo Hassan's definitely 3rd on the depth chart there. So I think Alan Walters will need to show quite a bit of improvement to be in the picture next year from what I gather.
I'm looking at the depth chart. I guess this is the September 30th one, which I need. No, I guess that is the most recent one, the one they put out last Tuesday. But he was listed, Hassan is the 3rd quarterback. Walters was not listed on the depth chart at all. They usually don't even go to 3, but they did on quarterback. So the fact that they went to 3 and Walters still isn't one of the 3 is telling. And I know people have a hard time grasping this, and I don't blame them. I mean, if you got to think, well, surely if this guy's not playing well, the next guy's got to be better. But from what I understand, there were miles between the first 2 and Walters leaving fall camp.
I think that's fair to say from what I understand, too.
I mean, who knows? I mean, he was a talented kid. I actually thought in practice 2 August ago that he looked like he could be capable, but I just think he's regressed from what I've told.
Yeah,
I don't know that. Yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But Dorking also wants to know the mood of the team after the game, as much as you can say there.
Yeah, definitely. Disappointed. I mean, no, frustrated, disappointed, everything you'd expect. Which I guess, I mean, I'd rather see him frustrated and angry than apathetic. They, they were pissed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They were pissed, and they care, and they lost. They know they didn't play well. So really, that's all. I mean, it's not like I'm holding back. There's really not much more to say about it.
Vandy Creed asks to compare the energy level on the sidelines for various years, including this one.
Consistent. It's not really different than it was under from Mason and Franklin. For the most part, the sideline's usually pretty businesslike, and it's when things go well, the guys get fired up, and when it's this frustration levels sink in. When not, I know people are looking for there's a reason for this, or the guys aren't excited. Like they get excited when the team plays well, and it's pretty consistent throughout my 7 years doing it. Like it's just like I said, not much more to add.
Ann Arbor says the Ole Miss game experience in the stadium was one of the better ones I've seen. He cites music, flashing lights, fireworks, video board, promotional shorts, etc. He says, "What does the Ole Miss stadium experience compare with the other venues you have visited?"
I like Ole Miss's stadium. Now, it wasn't a huge crowd the other day. Georgia remains my favorite. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Tuscaloosa several times, but not since I started sideline. I think that's the only stadium I have not gone to as a sideline reporter. Vanderbilt's probably played Auburn, played Arkansas, A&M, Mississippi State. Yeah, played everyone else in the West since I've started there. But yeah, Ole Miss has improved definitely. Mississippi State's was great, but I will say Mississippi State, I went to the year that they were ranked number 1. They had lost to Alabama the week before, so they were only number 4. So I saw Mississippi State when they were almost on an all-time high as far as fan interest and ranking and all that stuff. So but again, I think Ole Miss is cool. I'll say it, almost every atmosphere and all that stuff is better at night. So sometimes if I've been to a place during the day a bunch, like I've never been to Missouri at night. Last year I went to Missouri and it was 15, 20 degrees, and there's probably 15,000 people there at kickoff. It filled up a little bit, so it's hard to compare. Like I haven't been to Missouri at a night game, so I can't really compare that.
There is a considerable amount of apathy and frustration in that fan base. They've not had good attendance numbers, this being Ole Miss. And to sort of compound that, well, first of all, the story that I've heard is that Ole Miss had advertised a national search for a head coach and then settled on Matt Luke, which, from what I have heard, was kind of a situation where the interim chancellor pulled the levers on that. The fans were, A, unhappy with the choice, and B, really unhappy that they've been lied to. And Ole Miss named a chancellor over the weekend. Happened to be the guy who headed their search committee, was named the chancellor in a curveball that I don't think most people saw coming. And so that was a fan base that, in addition to the football element of things was really hacked off about just general university matters too, just as kind of a sidebar. I don't know how much of a topic of conversation that was in and around Oxford, but that was a pretty big deal that happened at the end of the week.
Yeah, so we talked to Parrish Alford, who's covered Ole Miss for a long time for the paper out of Tupelo, and he basically kind of said what you said, Chris, that there's a decent portion of the fan base that would make a move right now if they could, that they didn't want, even though they all love Matt Luke, former Rebel, but they didn't want him to be the head coach. That it's the quick, easy, they settled and all that. So I think it's sort of like they're almost waiting for them to fail, if that makes sense. So it is what it is. A lot of Ole Miss has, like pretty much every SEC fan base, has a demanding fan base, probably an inflated opinion of itself, and they're not. There's a decent amount of fans that aren't thrilled that Matt Luke's the coach.
This next one from Cortez James, he says, what type of coach would fit better with Vandy, offensive or defensive-minded coach? And just for background, look, I don't think Mitch or I have any information that a coaching change is imminent or anything like that. But let's be honest, that's the type of thing that fans spend the latter half of a blowout grumbling about in a disappointing season. It was a topic of conversation a lot of this weekend. Just people want your opinion on that. If there were, what do you think?
I have always been a proponent of running the option at Vanderbilt. I just think it's a first of all, I love watching it. I know some people don't, but I watch Army. I love watching Navy whenever they play. I understand it's got its limitations, but Georgia Tech won a lot of football games running the option. I remember old timers will remember this year, but back when I was doing the Commodore Report, the Vanderbilt was struggling in '98 offensively after that disastrous '97 offensive season, and was at TCU and looking bad on offense early in the game. And I said to my buddy who I did the paper with, Bill Troche, I said, I'm going to write a column about Vanderbilt should go to the option. And it wasn't like we were on deadline. It was a weekly newspaper, but we were at the game. And then Vanderbilt rallied. Rodney Williams had a huge game. Vanderbilt runs all over him in the second half, loses in overtime on a crazy ending in overtime. So I didn't write the column because I was like, well, the offense did well. But so my thinking has gone back since to the late '90s that Vanderbilt should run the option. Now it takes a administration, a school, whatever, a lot of cojones to hire an option coach at a Power 5 school. Georgia Tech's pretty much the only one that has done it recently. But so that's what I love the option.
The issue with the option, I mean, that's a very divisive topic. Here's one thing that I would not like about it. I can certainly see the reasons why you would want to do that, because if you're going to go hat for hat against other people, it's harder at Vanderbilt to get the athletes to beat Florida, Georgia, all that. I mean, I understand all the reasons both ways. Some people don't like the gimmicky part of the offense and everything, but the other downside to it, you don't hear this talked about a lot, is kind of what Georgia Tech's gone through. Is it like once you go that route and you recruit that way for years, your personnel, when you change to the next coach, unless he does the same thing, there's going to be a period, I think, of struggle, understandably. In the meantime, when you're making that switch, you might
only score 6 points at Ole Miss.
Well, you have a point.
So under Paul Johnson, 9-4, 11-3, 6-7, 8-5, 7-7, 7-6, 11-3, 3-9, 9-4, 5-6, 7-6.
No, I'm saying once you get rid of that coach.
I know. Yeah. I don't think you hire someone. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you hire someone in any sport because you're worried about the transition to the next coach. I think you're hiring someone with the confidence that they're going to do a good job for 5 to 7 years in this landscape. So, and obviously it's Georgia Tech's having a very difficult time with the transition now, but you hire a guy, they hire Jeff Collins, they're going to be patient with him because they know the situation, and it might add an extra year or two to the transition, but I don't think you pass up that 10, 12-year run that I just mentioned that Georgia Tech had.
Well, my answer to that question has always been, I think you just hire the best coach. But I think the thing that I don't mean to steer around the question. I think if everything else is equal, I hire the offensive coach because I think it's easier to put butts in seats that way. But I think the most important thing, especially at a place like Vanderbilt, is you just got to have a guy that's on top of all the details. I think that's really the thing that made James Franklin work. James really was not an exciting coach in terms of schemes on either side of the ball, but what James was best at is he didn't miss anything that was right in front of him in terms of dotting I's and crossing T's. And I think that was really what it was that got him over the edge, that and the motivational aspect of things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm the specific philosophy, I like the option, but I'm with you. Yeah, you hire the best coach you can hire, and offense, defense. The one good thing that Derek Mason's done. If you hire a defensive coach, I think you need to hire a guy that will turn the keys over to the offensive coordinator, and almost vice versa. If you hire a coach who's an offensive guy and it's a play caller, you got to hire a defensive coordinator that you trust 100%.
This next question comes from Memorial Magic, and this is about Kansas's weekend. I guess it was
Yeah.
last week, and I know you know the incident with the Snoop Dogg and the Midnight Madness event, which I think this is a good way to say it. That was the most inappropriate thing I think I've ever seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
given the situation in Kansas, yeah. But here's the question, and if you don't know what we're talking about, the question itself lends insight. The question is, both LSU and Kansas have issued statements of support for their head coaches who have been pretty blatantly violating NCAA recruiting rules. Kansas just hosted Snoop Dogg and pole dancers and fired out cannons of cash into the crowd, and I think towards the players too, for the Midnight Madness event. Does the NCAA have any power anymore? Have universities adopted a strategy of just completely ignoring the NCAA? Does anybody care?
I think it's easy to have that attitude, but I think people do care. I think Kansas is going to get hit by the NCAA. They're in the process of that. And some people think, Bill Self might be suspended for a year or half a year, given a show cause. Something will happen at Kansas. And I have no reason to suspect Bill Self is lying on this. He said he did not know to the extent that Snoop Dogg would be performing his entire, I put it this way, that Snoop Dogg would be using his entire playbook. Maybe he thought that they were the more conservative playbook. It's funny to look at. It looks like an obvious slap in the face, or just slap in the face of the NCAA. Like, we're going to do what we want. Now, I don't think the LSU situation's 100% over with either, but I'll agree with Magic on that one. That just screams about a school from the outside looking in. That's like, we just want to win and we don't care. And if we can find a way to keep our coach, we're going to do it. But again, I don't think the NCAA is completely done with LSU, and I think Kansas is going to get hit pretty soon.
Mitch, appreciate your insight as always. Thank you for joining us this week. I want you to have the floor to promote your magazines and your Twitter handle and anything else before we end the show today.
All right, Chris. You can find me at Athlon Mitch. Our college basketball magazines are out on sale now. And if you like college football talk, you can listen to me and Braden Gall on the Cover 2 podcast at Athlon Sports Mondays and Wednesdays during the season.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Chris. Talk to you soon.
He is Mitch Light of Athlon. He's also the sideline announcer for Vanderbilt football. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you again with more episodes coming later this week.